Bad weather is causing travel disruption to large parts of the Northern Hemisphere. In the United States, authorities are warning that areas in the Midwest could be hit by the worst snowfall in a decade. In the United Kingdom and here in Germany, snow and ice have caused chaos on the roads and grounded hundreds of planes.
Authorities in Germany called on people to stay home as heavy snows covered the country's south. The wet and icy conditions pose problems for drivers and rescue services alike.
The situation is difficult. It's extremely slippery. We have to make sure that our truck doesn't slip out from under us. And we also have to lift the truck so close to a bridge. And it's an SUV with more than 3 tons of water in it.
And it wasn't any better in Germany's skies. Many passengers were forced to make other plans as airports canceled hundreds of flights, despite the best efforts of airport staff to clear the snow and ice. It was a similar scene in the UK after Manchester, Liverpool and Birmingham closed their airports overnight. But the fresh powder also gave these families in Oxfordshire a chance to play in a winter wonderland. Meanwhile, in the US, meteorologists are warning people to stay warm. A winter storm warning is in effect from the Central Plains to the East Coast, with some areas predicted to get record snowfalls in the coming days.
Matthew Cappucci is a meteorologist and atmospheric journalist and joins us from Washington, D.C. Great to have you on the show. So, authorities in the US have been warning of some of the heaviest snowfall in a decade. Now, as we know, snowfall isn't unusual at this time of year. But why is there so much of it?
Yeah, what's pretty striking with this system is how moisture-loaded it is. There's a Gulf of Mexico connection here, so this low pressure, the storm, is scooping north moisture and turning it into snowfall. That's why we're seeing heavy snows from Kansas, Nebraska, all the way to the eastern seaboard, some 2,200 kilometers away. But the other thing that's a little bit concerning here is that this Gulf connection, the warm, humid air from the Gulf that's feeding this low, is also tracking north a little bit of mildness at the mid-levels, which means some of the precipitation is coming down not just as snow, but as sleet and freezing rain. So some folks are seeing a full-fledged ice storm. Freezing rain is just liquid rain that falls and then freezes on the ground. And some people are seeing more than a half a centimeter worth of ice accretion, turning roads into ice rinks. And that's part of the reason why this storm is such a disruptive one.
Sounds pretty treacherous. So nearly 70 million people are under some sort of weather alert. So how are they preparing and what are they actually going to be facing?
One of the more difficult facets with this system is that because there's mixing with that freezing rain, a lot of the pre-treatment we put down on the roadways will wash away. And that's why this time around, instead of saying, hey, the roads might be tough, they've been saying, hey, stay home. You simply can't travel. We've seen hundreds of accidents across Kansas, Missouri, and this is just sort of the start of the storm. Even here in the nation's capital where I am, we haven't seen a big snowfall of more than roughly, say, 15 centimeters in more than 2 years. That changes overnight tonight into tomorrow morning local time. Federal government offices in D.C. are closing down. Same thing with the schools. They will likely shut down as well. It's one of those situations where people just need to kind of hunker down for 24 to 36 hours and wait for a bit of either melting, which isn't really likely, or for more just cleanup with the crews on the roadways.
Now, Matthew, we're also seeing weather alerts across Europe, in the United Kingdom, in Ireland, and also here in Germany, actually. Now, we had the hottest year on record, now a lot of snow. So should people get used to these extremes?
Well, snow is always going to happen every winter. Some winters you get a lot more than other winters. But in this case, it's not so much a climate connection. It's more that you have something called a negative Arctic oscillation. Think of the Arctic oscillation as this weather system that basically determines how much cold air is kind of bottled up in the north. When the Arctic oscillation is positive, all that cold air is kind of just hovering around the pole, but not really going anywhere. But when the Arctic oscillation is negative, then we start seeing sort of a release of that cold air to the mid-latitudes, which helps cause little eddies in the jet stream and perturbations that make weather systems. So not only do we have a negative Arctic oscillation right now, but we have kind of a very wavy jet stream pattern allowing a number of storms to form. And with this cold air in place, courtesy of that release of the cold air from the high altitudes and high latitudes, we're able to get snowstorms. That's why you folks in Europe are getting snowstorms. We in the United States are getting them too. This pattern looks to continue for a few more weeks. And honestly, the weather should be pretty active, at least over North America, in the next 15 to 20 days.
Right. It's when I see weather like this or when I experience weather like this, I think maybe I should book a flight somewhere warmer. Matthew, always great to have you on the show. Matthew Cappucci is a meteorologist and atmospheric journalist. Thanks for joining us today from Washington, D.C.
Thank you.